Welcome to the MSJC Internet Authoring Videocast.
In Module 8, you'll learn about creating effective web pages. In Session 8.1, you will learn to define HTML and understand how it works. How to create an HTML document. How to use tags, attributes, and anchors. Add images and links to an HTML document. And create styles in an HTML document. The first version of HTML was developed in 1989 by Tim Berners-Lee and Robert Cailliau while they were working at CERN, the European Laboratory for Particle Physics, on a project to improve the laboratory's document handling procedures. Berners-Lee eventually transformed the initial work into the markup language that is now known as HTML. HTML quickly became the language used to create web pages because of its simplicity and portability, which made it compatible with many operating systems and on different types of devices. HTML quickly evolved through specifications that are the result of the collective work of the organization known as the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C. You can find them at w3.org. The W3C establishes specifications, or sets of standards, that identify how a web browser interprets HTML code so that different apps and devices will interpret HTML correctly and consistently. The specifications are voluntary, but because the success of the website depends on the browser's ability to follow the specifications, most organizations adhere to them as much as possible. The current specification is HTML5, which is supported by most all browsers. A markup language is a general term that indicates the separation of the formatting of a document and the content of a document. As we said, the World Wide Web Consortium, or the W3C, establishes specifications or sets of standards that identify how a browser interprets the HTML code. The Hypertext Markup Language 5, or HTML5, is the most recent markup language specification from the W3C. It makes it so that the web content is more consistently delivered to all devices that are connected to the Internet. The Extensible Markup Language, XML, and the Extensible Hypertext Markup Language, XHTML, are other popular markup languages used to describe the format and structure of data. The Hypertext Markup Language is the most basic building block of the web. Using an HTML file extension identifies the file as an HTML document. Other technologies besides HTML are generally used to describe a web page's appearance and presentation, CSS, or functionality and behavior, JavaScript. HTML is not case-sensitive, but you should stick to using only one case, either all lowercase or all uppercase, or mixed case. All lowercase is preferred. HTML specifications that are not included when newer specifications are released are referred to as deprecated, which essentially means that it's being removed from the language and you're not recommended to use it anymore. HTML tags are used to mark up a document's content in order to give the content structure and semantics, or meaning. The combination of the HTML tag or tags and its content is referred to as an HTML element. Generally, elements are either normal with an opening tag and a closing tag, such as an opening P tag followed by some text and a closing P tag, or void, such as the BR or break tag. Notice how the closing tags and the empty tags use a / to indicate that it's the end of the element. Comments can also be made using this format, an open angle bracket, exclamation point -- followed by the comment text, and then 2 dashes and a right angle bracket. It's referred to as a comment element. We'll demonstrate this more in depth in a little bit. Some tags include attributes that specify additional information about the marked up content. Some attributes are optional, some are not. Here's a graphic representation of an H1 element. Notice that from the left angle bracket all the way to the far right angle bracket, everything in between is referred to as the HTML element. So it begins then with the left angle bracket followed by the tag name, which in this case is an H1 or a heading level 1 element. And in this opening tag, we also have an attribute, which is an ID attribute, and it's being assigned a value of heading 1. This ID attribute can be used to automate the creation of a table of contents, where users click the heading 1 link in the table of contents and then are taken to this heading in the HTML document. After the attribute, you see the right angle bracket. That completes the opening H1 tag. Then we have the content node, which is the actual content that we're marking up in the document. That will be the text that is displayed in the web browser window. And then the HTML element is completed with a closing tag using the left angle bracket / the tag name and the right angle bracket. So to reiterate, just notice that the HTML element is an H1 element and it's marking up content that is the text that reads heading text. Here's a more in-depth document. In fact, this is your assignment for Module 8. This shows you an overview of an HTML document with the source code on the left, and then the representation of that HTML code in the web browser on the right. The first line in the HTML document is the document type declaration, which informs the web browser which version of HTML the source code is written in. This should always be the first line of an HTML document, and technically it's not an HTML tag but a preprocessor directive. The opening HTML tag identifies the beginning of the HTML document, which includes two sections, the head and the body. Every HTML document starts with the opening HTML tag to indicate that it is the beginning of an HTML document. The opening head tag identifies the beginning of the head section. General information about the document is placed in between the opening and closing head tags, like the title element and, in this example, an HTML comment. The contents of the title element will display in the web browser's tab, and the content is ignored by the web browser because comments are text used for the page developers to make comments or notes about the page. The head section ends with the closing head tag. Notice the addition of the / character, identifying the end of the head section. The second required section in an HTML document is the body section, which includes the opening and closing body tags. The body section contains all of the content that will be displayed in the web browser's window. The opening H1 tag identifies the beginning of the heading level 1 element, which contains an IMG or image element. Notice that the opening H1 tag has a style attribute added to it. The style attribute is used to embed cascading style sheet formatting information that the web browser will apply to the H1 element, in this case centering its contents, the image, in the web browser's window. The IMG element has an SRC attribute, short for source, that identifies the name of the image file that the web browser will display. The image tag also has an alt attribute, which is used by a software program called a screen reader, which is used by vision-impaired people to be able to read a web page. The alt text will be read by the screen reader to inform the vision-impaired person what the image displays on the screen. It is a requirement of the American with Disabilities Act that all images embedded in web pages must include alt text with a description of the image. In this case, the alt text is the key prominent text that is displayed in the image. Notice that the image tag has no closing tag, as it is a type referred to as a void or self-closing tag. And again, notice the / just before the closing angle bracket of the image tag, which is followed by the closing H1 tag to indicate the end of the H1 heading. Next is a heading level 2 element, which uses a style attribute to center the text and display it with the color red. By the way, all HTML heading elements create bolded text. That can be modified by styles or even the user by changing the settings in their web browser. After the H2 element is a paragraph element which encapsulates the bulk of the text on this page. Notice it has an emphasis or EM tag to make the text "Officer Miller is offering these classes for free" italicized. It will also make a screen reader apply emphasis to the text when it is read to the vision-impaired person viewing the page. Notice too that there is a strong tag used to make the date of the event display as bolded text. And it also tells the screen reader to apply a stronger voice to the text when it is read. The paragraph text ends with a closing paragraph tag. Following the paragraph text is an unordered list or UL element which contains 3 list elements. The first list element uses an anchor tag to create a hypertext link that the viewer of the page will be able to click on to view a page with the file name elder.html. After the end of the UL element, there is a closing body tag to indicate the end of the body section. And then finally, there's a closing HTML tag to indicate the end of the HTML document. And there you have the basics of how to write source code to create an HTML document, which will be processed by a web browser. Here are some tips for writing good HTML. Use line breaks and indented text to make sure that your HTML files are easier to read. If you think back to the previous slide, that was done there. Insert comments into your HTML file to document your work. Enter all tag and attribute names in lowercase. Place all attribute values in quotes. Close all two-sided tags. Make sure that nested elements do not cross. Use styles in place of presentational attributes whenever possible. Use logical elements to describe an element's contents. And use physical elements to describe the element's appearance. When planning a web page, you can create web pages using a text editor or a program that includes multiple features for working with web pages and websites. When you use a text editor to create a web page, you can type the content of the web page and the tags that you need to format the content. When you use a web page creation program, the program creates all of the necessary tags to format the page. When you convert a document such as a Word document to an HTML document, such as using the Save As command, the tags are inserted into the converted document, but with a lot of baggage, so it's not recommended. Beginning web page developers should use web-safe fonts, which are common on all devices, because the fonts that are available on your computer are not always the same ones that are available on everybody else's computers. Web browsers ignore blank lines and white space in HTML code, so including blank lines and white space to make your code easier to read is encouraged. The DTD, or Document Type Declaration, is a one-sided tag that tells the browser which syntax version of the markup language your document uses. If the document type declaration is omitted in the HTML document, the browser renders the page using what's known as Quirks mode. In Quirks mode, a browser renders most basic content correctly, but it's not guaranteed. There are 6 level headings in HTML. So when you're creating headings on a page, you always want to start with the highest level, H1 tags. Attributes may be added to your tags. When inserting and formatting a paragraph, content can be added to your web page by copying text from a document and inserting it between the open paragraph and closed paragraph tags. And then you can enclose your text in additional tags like the strong tag and the emphasis tag to make other changes to the text, such as changing the text to bold or italic. HTML supports 3 kinds of lists. You've already seen the bulleted or unordered list, where the items are identified with some sort of a symbol to the left. A numbered list or an ordered list identifies the items in sequential order. And in a definition list, the items are usually associated with their definition. In HTML, an image is any file that contains a picture, a logo, or a computer-generated file. To include an image in a web page, it must be stored as a file. The height and width attributes describe the image's height and width in pixels. A pixel is a single point in an image. A relative path specifies the file's location relative to the location of the current file. An absolute path specifies a file's location with absolute precision. There is no reference to the current file. The HTML tag that creates hypertext links or hyperlinks is the anchor tag or A tag. It's a 2-sided tag. It includes an href attribute, short for HTTP reference, which specifies the file name of the target page. The most common use of hyperlinks is to connect different web pages in a website together. The page that opens when a hyperlink is clicked is called the hyperlink's target or target page. The web page that contains the hyperlink is called the source page. The syntax of a hyperlink that connects a source page with a target page is as follows. In the opening anchor tag, you have a left angle bracket followed by the A, and then the href attribute, which defines the target page that the browser will go to when the user clicks the link. And then after the right angle bracket is the actual content or the text that the user will see on the page that they will click on. And then we have the closing anchor tag. Most browsers underline hyperlinks and display them in a blue font so that they are easy to identify on a web page, but that can all be changed with styles. When a hyperlink is used to link to a location on the same page, it is sometimes called a bookmark. You can create a hyperlink at any time during your web page development. It is important to make sure that the page is stored in the correct location when creating the link. Be sure to test all of your links, both before and after the web page is published, to be sure that it worked as expected. A cascading style sheet, or CSS, is a file ending with the extension .css. It contains all the formatting instructions used in a particular website, although you can have multiple style sheets in a website. It allows a developer to separate the content of a site from its formatting instructions. Just imagine a website that has hundreds of pages, and all of those pages contain an H1 element where you embedded the style information as being the color of red. Now the client comes back to you and says that they prefer the color to be blue or green. In that case, you would have to go to every document and make the change from red to the new color. When using a style sheet, you can simply identify H1 elements and the styling color that you want to apply within the single sheet and link all of the web pages to that style sheet. Then when you go to make the change, you only have to make the change in one place, the style sheet. Changing the instructions for a web page element in a CSS file changes the formatting for that element in all web pages that are linked to that CSS file. An inline style, which was demonstrated to you previously, is contained in the HTML document itself, such as enclosing a word or a phrase in bold tags or using the style attribute in an opening tag. An internal style sheet, also known as an embedded style sheet, creates a set of formatting instructions that affects the tags in a single HTML document. There is a third type, which is the external style sheet, which is recommended for most websites. In session 8.2, you'll be learning about creating storyboards, which shows the pages that you plan to include in your website and the relationship between those pages. How to select appropriate website creation and management tools. How to choose specialized tools. How to identify websites' technical requirements. How to secure a domain name. How to publish a website, and how to promote a website. A storyboard can help identify the general content for each page, the number of pages in the site, and the relationship between the site's pages. Think about the plan for the content to include in the website, including text, images, hyperlinks, multimedia, meaning audio or video, and any forms that will be used for collecting data. Many web developers rely on website management tools rather than using Notepad and HTML. Adobe's Dreamweaver is a website creation and management tool that reduces the need for the developer to understand the syntax of all the tags and the attributes that are used to create web pages. It uses a graphical user interface to generate the HTML documents for web pages, often using menu selections, drag and drop, or other simplified methods for adding content to a web page. It also includes tools that you can use to format text, create hyperlinks, add multimedia, and perform other tasks that are supported by HTML and XHTML. These tools are all fine and dandy, but the reality is, when you run into problems with these tools, you'll still need to really understand how HTML works to be able to fix the errors that were created by these tools. Another option is to use one of the many web-based site creation platforms that let you select templates to provide structure and overall design for the site that you can populate with your own content. Some examples would include Weebly, Squarespace, and Snap Pages. These sites provide you with a way to develop a professionally designed website quickly and without needing to learn how to use a sophisticated program such as Dreamweaver. They also can be very limited in their capabilities, and many of them have quite a learning curve. Some web pages include content that is beyond the capabilities of HTML, such as dynamic content. Dynamic content is content that changes when you view the page, such as an image that represents the number of times that a page has been viewed, an animated graphic, or an interactive product display. JavaScript is a scripting language that is executed by a web browser. You'll learn more in depth about JavaScript in the Web Development Level 2 class. To process a script in the web browser, it uses a scripting engine. The scripting engine translates the code that's in the script into a format that the browser can execute. The most common use of JavaScript is to perform tasks that are not possible in the static world of HTML. Many websites include resources for downloading and using free scripts written in JavaScript, one of which is javascript.com, which includes a tutorial that lets you code a program from within the website to demonstrate some of the programming syntax and some simple commands that display text and open dialog boxes. What can you do with JavaScript without having to learn how to write your own scripts? You can use a script to display a greeting based on the time of the day of the week, or a special occasion. You can display a static calendar or an interactive calendar that lets the user pick a date. You can also display the current date and time or a countdown until the specific day and time, such as a holiday or a grand opening. You can also use JavaScript to display scrolling text or a drop-down menu of selections, or animate buttons that change color or display a message when the user points to or clicks them. A script might also detect the user's browser version or open up a pop-up window with a message. JavaScript adds other functionality to a web page as well, such as simple or scientific calculators. Most of the scripts for performing these tasks are available for free from the developers who created them. When you use a script to add functionality to a web page, you can provide content in your web page that is beyond the basic capabilities of HTML. You also provide your page users with tools that enhance their interaction with your website. A lot goes into building web pages and websites. Depends on the environment that you'll be working in as to whether you'll be focused in one area of the web development or not. But if you're in the position where you're wearing all hats, you'll need to look at other development tools as well, including choosing an image editing and illustration program. So computer-generated graphics come in two basic formats: raster, also called bitmap, or vector. Raster graphics are composed of pixels, and they use file name extensions like .bmp, .gif, .jpg, .png, and .tif. The .gif or GIF, the .jpeg or JPG, and the .ping PNG are the three most commonly used formats in web development. Vector graphics are composed of paths, and they use file names like .ai if you're using Adobe Illustrator, or .wmf, .cdr if you're using CorelDRAW, and .dxf. Scalable vector graphics, or SVG files, are the most used vector format in web development. And programs like Adobe Illustrator and CorelDRAW can export the files that you create in those programs to the scalable vector graphic format. Raster graphics are not scalable, and the content cannot be layered. If you use a scanner to scan your images, that creates raster graphics. Vector graphics, on the other hand, are scalable, their content can be layered, and they're best suited for drawn objects. So continuing now with our selection of editing and illustration programs, raster graphics require the use of image editing programs such as Adobe Photoshop, which lets you resize, crop, and retouch photos. Image editing programs usually include a basic tool palette that lets you perform tasks common to creating and editing images. Vector graphics require the use of illustration software. Illustration software usually requires more thorough understanding, which can be gained from taking a class. So now we take a look at choosing a web hosting provider. And it's important that you understand your website's technical requirements when choosing a web hosting provider. When selecting a web hosting provider, consider not only cost, but also the types of web servers that the web hosting provider uses. Is it Linux, Apple, Windows, or other? The software used to run the servers? The services that are being offered by the web hosting provider. Be sure that the web hosting provider can meet all technical requirements of your website. Do they support ASP.NET? Do they support Node.js? Do they provide MySQL or SQL Server database access? There's quite a plethora of options when it comes to choosing your web hosting provider. This screen offers 30 different options, and although the list is comprehensive, it's by no means a complete list. You can do a Google search on each of these hosting providers and go to their websites and start getting a feel for the different options and features that each will offer you. When it comes to choosing your web hosting provider, you need to understand the various types of web servers that will be available to you, not only their operating systems, but how secure they are. Do they support the encryption of data? Do they offer a dedicated server, which is a web server that hosts only one website? Or are they offering shared servers, which host several sites on a single server, which means you're sharing the bandwidth and the CPU usage and the storage. which means you'll need to understand your site's file size and your transfer requirements. The amount of data that's transferred from the web server is known as the site's bandwidth or data transfer. Most companies sell server space based on a file size limit and a daily or monthly data transfer limit. Make sure that the web hosting provider can handle current needs as well as anticipated needs. Evaluate other services that are offered by other web hosting providers. Other useful services offered by web hosting providers includes site statistics, email accounts, website templates, website creation and management tools, database software, domain name management services, and technical support. A traffic report gives detailed information such as how many visitors used the site each day, how many pages the visitor viewed, which pages visitors used to enter and exit the website, which search strings were entered into the website search feature, and so on. Analyzing a site helps you understand who is using the site and what information visitors are seeking. One recommendation would be using analytics at google.com. You can register your site there, and once you've done that, Google will give you a little bit of code that you put into your web page, which helps them collect the analytics on your website. And you must register a domain name for your website. Some web hosting providers include domain name registration and renewal as part of their service. Once you begin creating content for your website, then you'll need to be able to publish that content up to your web hosting provider. The web hosting provider will provide the information needed to upload the website files. And when uploading, be sure that you upload all supporting files, including images, linked files, and multimedia files. Be sure that you maintain folder structure that's needed for relative paths included in your HTML code. And confirm absolute paths used in hyperlinks for supporting files to make sure that those files are available to your site visitors. Remember, absolute paths that worked with files on your hard drive may not work once the files are uploaded to the web hosting provider. When publishing a website, your web hosting provider may offer you with a control panel, which is a web page that will include all the tools that you need to access and manage your website. A local website would be a copy of the website that's stored on a hard or a local drive, maybe on your computer or one of the company's servers. And the website stored on the web server is called the remote website. The last major task in publishing a website is promotion. You can be proactive and use meta tags in your web pages to teach search engines how to list your site. Meta tags contain a summary of the content that a search engine might include in its search results and are used by search engines to index the web page. Search engine submissions is the process of submitting your site's URL to one or more search engines so that they will list your site in their indexes. And search engine optimization is the process of fine-tuning your site so that it ranks well in a search engine's results when a user searches the web page for your site's keywords. That concludes this lecture. Until next time, happy coding. If you liked this video, please click the like button and leave us a comment down below. I also would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are posted.